Today, I'm going to be building a competitive Pokemon team, but I'm only going to be using Wonder Trades. And after every 10 games, I have to replace one of my Pokemon with a new Pokemon that I Wonder Traded for. Let's get into the Wonder Trading. So the very first Pokemon on our all Wonder Trade team is going to be Meowth. Our second Pokemon is going to be Lapras. And our third and final Pokemon is Cyclizar. Now let's get into some training. This team that I'm going to have to use for my first 10 games is quite frankly one that I'm very scared of using because, to be honest with you, I don't see any redeeming qualities in this lineup. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I feel like Persian and Cyclizar are just massive limiting factors. The Lapras seems significantly more interesting. But for these first 10 games, I'm just going to have to try my best. That's when I'm going to have my first opportunity to Wonder Trade for a replacement. I'm going to keep leveling up these Pokemon till they're all a little bit above level 50. Then I'll give you a walkthrough of what the team is looking like before our very first game. All right, let's take a look at our Pokemon before our first game. So here we have our Lapras. It's somehow shiny, which is pretty epic. I'm definitely happy about that. I put Leftovers on because I think that's an item that's going to work well with Reflect. If we can prevent a bit of damage and gain some health, I think Lapras stands a way better chance at doing some damage. Because as you can see, we're going to have to use Rain Dance to pump Hydro Pump. So we need this guy to stay alive for a bit. I put on Sheer Cold as a Hail Mary kind of play. I think it can do some serious damage if we get the right circumstances, although it is a low hit rate. For our Persian here, we put on the Focus Sash, just because I want to get something off with the Persian. The way I see it now is this is the weak link. And the moves are a big reason why. We have Screech, Nasty Plot, Assurance, and Fury Swipes. To be honest with you guys, I just don't know what to put on the Persian to even make it usable. This thing is just a train wreck. So we got the Cyclizar here. We got Rocky Helmet on, so if a Pokemon, impacts it head on, then it will take some damage, which is always good. We got Shed Tail, U-Turn, Knock Off, Dragon Rush. I put on U-Turn and Shed Tail because I want this Pokemon to potentially be an opener for us if need be. Shed Tail will allow to create a decoy for Lapras to go in and potentially do more damage. U-Turn gives us an exit strategy. Knock Off to remove items, and Dragon Rush because I still wanted some sort of stab damage on this Pokemon. Alright guys, so here we go into our very first game with our Wonder Trade team. And we have a very unlucky matchup with Lapras versus Meridian. Meridian uses Volt Switch and goodbye Lapras. And then I'm just left with Cyclizar and Persian. And man, that is not an inspiring duo. These are two very weak Pokemon. They're almost harmless, to be honest with you. And this was the moment that I realized that this challenge is incredibly difficult. Because you're going up against people with well-crafted teams, Pokemon that play into each other, and you just kind of have a bunch of odds and ends, and you got to try and make it work. Now, Cyclizar has some moves here that can make him a little bit interesting, but at the end of the day, he's not gonna move the needle on this team. Same with Persian. Persian's the most harmless Pokemon I've ever seen. This thing has no hit abilities. I swear, the moves are horrible. Now, mind you, I could switch up the moves, but it's just such a basic Pokemon that it's just really tough to do anything. It can't learn anything very interesting that I know about. Correct me in the comments down below if I'm wrong. I very well could be. But this game was followed by a couple more losses, and I had to make the executive decision if I want this to be interesting at all, that we need to break the rules here and we need to do a Wonder Trade after 5 games. So with fear, after being 0-5, I decide to do a Wonder Trade. And the Pokemon we get from that is Quaxly. So this is a whole lot more interesting now. Having 2 water types is going to be a problem, but at least, unlike Persian, Quaxly isn't going to be completely useless when finally evolved. So after evolving Quaxwell into Quaquaval, I head into the very first game with our revamped team. In this game, we are using a Quaquaval, as you can see here, Lapras, as well as Cyclizar. The move set that I chose for our Quaquaval, I think is going to be super valuable. We have Aqua Step is a water type move that's really beneficial for sweeping teams because every time that's successfully landed, it boosts your speed. So this is a Pokemon that can use Aqua Step extremely effectively to get first hits consistently. we got close combat to give us a little bit more coverage against dark types, ice types, and rock types, as well as Ice Spinner to give us a little bit of, some benefit against playing against dragon type Pokemon. And I threw Protect on there because I think that it's going to be a great way to use this Pokemon as an entry in a bit more of a safe way. The item I chose for Quaquaval, for me, was a very obvious choice. I picked the Focus Sash. And that's because I wanted an item that allowed Quaquaval to really take a hit. As you can see, I got moves like Ice Spinner that are very good against Grass-type Pokemon. But if that Pokemon were to be hit by a Grass-type move, Quaquaval would basically die. So I needed something that would allow me to get a hit off on a Pokemon where I have a move that could potentially do... For me, picking an item for Quaquaval was very simple. I wanted something that allowed this Pokemon to use the different moves that it has. For example, Ice Spinner is a move that's very effective against Grass-type Pokemon. But if a Grass-type Pokemon was to get a move off on Quaquaval, that would be devastating. So I picked the Focus Sash, as this is an item that will allow me to use the move diversity and risk taking some pretty big hits to get some pretty big hits. If you have a different opinion, please leave a comment down below, because I do feel like that's a controversial opinion. So after this big win, we are now sitting 10 games deep into this thing, and my current record is 3-7, and honestly, that's not too bad given where we were, sitting at 0-5 and having to pull off an emergency trade to bring in Quaquaval to make this team more competitive. But with that being said, now we're 10 games in, it's time to follow the rules, and we have to do a Wonder Trade. So let's see what Pokemon we are going to be adding to our team and what Pokemon we are going to be removing from this team. So our new Pokemon is Ralts. I think this is going to be a great addition to the team. Having a Fairy Psychic type is going to be very beneficial. So I'm going to get to training Ralts, and I'll see you guys in our first game. Alright guys, so here we are in our very first game with Gardevoir. So unfortunately, this is also our first game not having Cyclizar on the team. Cyclizar was an okay Pokemon, and I felt like the moveset was very interesting, but I just wasn't good at using Cyclizar, and sometimes it's like that. No matter how good the moveset, it's just a Pokemon that I didn't feel comfortable using, and I prefer to keep Quaquaval and Lapras instead, even though it is two water types. But enough about that. Here's Gardevoir for the first time. Let's talk about her. So the moveset that I picked for Gardevoir is Psychic, Moonblast, Dazzling Gleam, and Draining Kiss. First, I picked Psychic because I wanted a move that would be effective against fighting and poison-type Pokemon. As you know, with only 3 Pokemon on your team, it's often hard to find coverage for every single type. Next is a move that I don't think needs any introduction. At 95 power, 100% accuracy, and the chance to lower your opponent's special attack, that's right, we have a Moonblast. Now, this is kind of just a must-know move for any Fairy-type Pokemon. It also gives us a ton of coverage, as it's super effective against Dark types, fighting types, and will help our Quaquaval's Ice Spinner against Dragon type. The next move we have is Dazzling Gleam. This is another Fairy type move, but it only has 80 power and 100 accuracy, but I thought it would be a good one to include just because, we needed some more Fairy coverage on this team. Next off, we have Draining Kiss. I picked this move because I really wanted some life steal somewhere on this team. A Pokemon I could put out there and just try to sustain their HP at the same time as do damage to opponents. And I thought Draining Kiss on Gardevoir was the perfect opportunity for that. The item that I chose for Gardevoir, it really leaned into the lifesteal aspect, as I decided to put on Leftovers, because why not, let's gain a little bit of health after every turn. Now, looking back at it, if I really wanted to lean in, I could have replaced Dazzling Dream with Protect, as that would have allowed me to, gain more health through Leftovers and be safe. But at the end of the day, I didn't do that. I leaned into Attack, Lifesteal on this Pokemon, and, I think it worked out pretty well. So using this team of Quaquaval, Lapras, and Gardevoir, honestly, it was pretty good. I would say the main downfall to this team is pretty simple. It's having 2 water types. Although Quaquaval does have some move variety that sort of allows attacks as, a fighting type. But this team did have some very clear weaknesses, and I think the most obvious is the fact that I have 2 pretty intensely water-type Pokemon on this team. It gave me a massive weakness to electric-type Pokemon. As well as that, I didn't have any ground. ground would have been the counter. But you see, I get put up against this Iron Hands here. This Thunder punches my Quaquaval to the Shadow Realm. And then we put out Lapras, and he doesn't do it. Thank God. He doesn't go for another Thunder Punch, but he easily could have just knocked it out as well. Instead opts for Belly Hands and gives me the opportunity to actually take out the Iron Hands, which I did not think he was going to give me. But hey, he gave me an opportunity to go out there and maybe win this game. He puts out his Dragapult. Now, this is a Pokemon that I have absolutely struggled with because of Phantom Force. This is a move that only the scum of the earth use, I truly believe. And I'm thinking, you know what? I need to throw a Hail Mary here. So I use Sheer Cold. And what do you know? It hits, and I end up getting the win. All right, guys, so we have now played 10 games with this team of Quaquaval, Lapras, and Gardevoir, and my record after those 5 games is 5-5. Honestly, I'm not too pleased with it because I think I could have did better with this team, but at the end of the day, we did have 2 water types and, some pretty definitive weaknesses we were trying to deal with. But now that we've played 10 games, it's time for a Wonder Trade. So hopefully we can get something that will replace one of our water types, but let's see what we get. So the new Pokemon we are adding to our team is Swalot, a poison type. This could be fairly interesting. I'm going to get to training, and I'll see you in our first game. Alright guys, so here we go into our very first game with Swalot on our team. So unfortunately, this is our very first game not having Lapras. Lapras was very good, but due to just having 2 water types, we really had to pick between the 2, and I ended up wanting to keep Quaquaval just because of, closed combat and Ice Spinner. As well as I just really love the speed and sweet potential. But a Swalot's going to bring something new to the team. It's a poison type, and let's take a look at the moveset. So we have Sludge Bomb to start. A good poison type move. We have Yawn, Encore, and Toxic. So let's start with taking a look at our first move here, Sludge Bomb. This is a poison move. It's a special move. It has 90 power and 100 accuracy, as well as a 30% chance to poison the enemy. And would play into our second move and explain why I decided to put Yawn on this Pokemon. As it can put people to sleep. So I really wanted this to sort of be a status effect Pokemon, be able to poison them, be able to put them asleep, and use Encore to possibly trap them in a certain move cycle. Now, if 30% poison chance wasn't good enough for you with Sludge Bomb, I also included Toxic on this Pokemon, and that's an 85% chance of poisoning. So this Pokemon is truly just meant to set you up. You're going to go to sleep. You're going to be stuck repeating your move for 3 to 5 turns with Encore. You're going to be poisoned through Toxic. You're going to be hit hard and maybe even poisoned with Sludge Bomb. That's the point, and as you can see, it worked pretty well there with the Garchomp. I got it poisoned, and it did significant damage, and set it up for Quaquaval to come out and get the kill. But with all that being said, we still have one major weakness on this team, and it's dealing with Meridian. This thing goes crazy on all my teams. Electric Drift has KO'd my Pokemon a million times in what has only been 20 games so far. So hopefully that's a trend that won't continue. But overall, I feel like this team kind of still is not very good. Gardevoir is probably my best Pokemon. As you can see, it did substantial damage with Moonblast to Zekrom right here. But Fusion Bolt, this decimates Gardevoir. And I don't know really what to do about that. I don't have any counter for electric types. I don't have any ground. And that would be the only solution to this problem. Now, for Swalot, this is a Pokemon that, to be honest with you, I don't like. I set it up as a setup guy, but I feel like it never really is able to fulfill its role properly, and that might be user error, right? I might be going out there and treating this thing entirely wrong. But I'm trying to use it for setup, and it doesn't seem to really work. As for Quaquaval, this is a Pokemon that I do think is very good, but it feels like a glass cannon. And the only thing, a lot of the time, that really keeps it going is its Focus Sash. Now, mind you, the speed helps it a lot, being a glass cannon. Getting that first hit off is very important for sweeping, but it just doesn't feel like it has any substantial bulk to it. So now that I've played 30 games total, let's do a recap of my success and failures using the team of Quaquaval, Swalot, and Gardevoir. So using these 3 Pokemon, I went 2-8, which is absolutely abysmal. The role that I envisioned Swalot performing for me, this isn't the one it was able to fulfill. It had some moments where it did do some good things, mainly just poisoning Pokemon. But oftentimes, it just got taken out very quickly, and it didn't have the bulk that I feel like it really needed. Maybe I should have put an Assault Vest on it. Maybe I should have gave it leftovers, did something else to help. But as for the way that I used it, this Pokemon was not good, and it put me in a really bad position. In my last 30 games, I'm sitting at a record of 9-21, which is so bad, and I really need this next Wonder Trade to be a game-breaking Pokemon that could potentially give me an upper hand in almost all scenarios. I need something powerful, and I really need it now. So let's see what we're going to be using in our next 10 games. And our 4th Pokemon is going to be Golett. This one will be very interesting to see how it plays out. I'm going to get to training, and I'll see you in our first game. All right, here we go with our first game with Golett. So this is a pretty interesting one because Golett is the only Pokemon on this team I didn't bother to fully evolve. Now, the only reason behind that is because when it hit level 50, it hadn't evolved yet. So it was time to go in and actually play some games then. Golett is replacing Swalot on this team because Swalot, man, I just didn't vibe with it. It didn't work. And Golett's a really interesting Pokemon because it's ground, right? So this is going to be an actual counter to electric-type Pokemon, as well as Ghost, meaning it knows that move right there, Phantom Force. Meaning, you know, it can disappear, the opponent will miss, and then the next turn it will attack. This is a move that has absolutely done numbers on me in the past, and I could not find a counter for it. So going into the game, I was super excited to have Phantom Force on Golett. The other moves that I taught Golett are Hammer Arm, Earthquake, and Dynamic Punch. So Hammer Arm is a very powerful move, as well as Dynamic Punch. They're both fighting type moves, looking for a little bit more diversity in move pool once again. Earthquake is the only ground move I have on this entire team. So that's going to be very valuable going forward, as well as, you know, I already mentioned it, but I'll say it again because I think it's a big deal. We have Phantom Force. Moving forward with these 3 Pokemon, I feel very good about our coverage. We have Water, we have Fighting, we have Ground, we have Ghost, we have Fairy, and we have Psychic, which is great variety. So going into the 10 games with this team, I felt incredibly confident. And clearly so does my Quaquaval because I'm facing a Jolteon right now. And I don't care. It uses Thunderbolt on me. Focus Slash, baby. That is why we got it there. Close combat, boom. Jolteon is a goner. And that is why we put Focus Sash on. So the item that I ended up giving Golett was the Assault Vest, simply because I wanted it to be a rather bulky Pokemon. I thought that, you know, if it could withstand a hit and use Phantom Force, we could have an elusive, tanky battle man here that could just kind of go forever. But as you can see in this game right here, I got absolutely finessed. Went for an Earthquake, he swapped out to Lugia, and that was over. I go for a Phantom Force, even though it's not effective against Lugia, to be honest, is just because I really wanted to try using Phantom Force. And he swaps out the Lugia again for a Chin-Pao, and next thing you know, it basically does nothing to the Chin-Pao, maybe an eighth of its total health, which is absolutely brutal. And then the Chin-Pao just uses Icicle move and just absolutely destroys my Golett, which is unfortunate. The Poison Spikes get into my Gardevoir pretty strong here, but the Moonblast is extremely effective against the Chin-Pao. So by the end of this game, our time with these 3 Pokemon is coming to an end. Quaquaval, Gardevoir, and Golett. So in this series of 10 games, my record was 5-5, which is not good, but it's not bad. You know, it's sort of typical for what I've done in my time playing Pokemon on this YouTube channel. But I really do hope that things can pick up soon, and I can maybe even end this going positive. It's still not impossible yet, but a lot of it is really going to depend on how the rest of these Wonder Trades play out. Will I continue to get Pokemon that just don't work for me, or will I start getting some just very overpowered Pokemon? It's really hard to tell because this team is built off Wonder Trading, so it is impossible to tell. With that being said, let's get into our next Wonder Trade and meet our new Pokemon. And our fifth Pokemon is Frostless, which I think is going to be a great addition to the team. It's a Ghost Ice type, and I think that's going to be very interesting. Once again, I'm going to go level this thing up, and then I'll see you guys in our first game. So as we get into our first game, let's talk a little bit about Frostless. This is a Pokemon that I think was used competitively before. One of the reasons why I say this is because it's a Terra Electric type, which is a very powerful Terra type for a Ghost Ice Pokemon to sort of, mix it up and be able to go electric. That's incredibly powerful, and I don't know why they would do that outside of a competitive setting. The other reason why I say this is the move pool. So this Frostless was Frost Breath, Shadow Ball, Scary Face, and Draining Kiss. The only thing I would say is a little funky about this is the fact that it doesn't know Thunderbolt, because I do believe that Frostless can learn Thunderbolt, and is a Terra Electric type. I see no reason for it not to know Thunderbolt. So as you guys can see now, I ended up replacing Swolot with Frostless. Honestly, it's only because I just didn't want two Ghost types on the team, and I found that Frostless's Ice was probably a little bit more valuable than Swolot's Ground, although I still do have a big weakness to Electric-type Pokemon again, which is not something I look forward to, especially with Meridian being so firmly planted in the meta right now. Playing with this team was honestly a pain, and I wouldn't really recommend it to anybody if you're looking at, building a competitive team with these three strange Pokemon on it. I wouldn't do it, because in my 10 games playing with this group of 3, I went 4-6. At this point, in our 100 game challenge, we are currently sitting at 19 wins to 31 losses. Now that's pretty unfortunate, to be honest, but I have full confidence that we are going to rebound from this, and we are going to get a God Pokemon in our next Wonder Trade. So let's hop into our next Wonder Trade, and man, do I really need to catch a break here. I'm hoping for something good. So the next Pokemon entering our team is Sprigatito, which is pretty wild, because that means we now have 2 of the 3 Paldea starters. I'm going to go evolve this thing into Meowscarada, and then we are going to try and turn this thing around with our brand new looking team. I'm hopeful moving forward. So let's talk a little bit about Meowscarada going into this game. So this is a Pokemon that I'm pretty sure is actually meta at the moment due to the fact that I see so many of them, and they all seem to use the same old U-turn strategy where they use a move that allows them to get a hit off and then go back for a new Pokemon. You guys can see this is the exact strategy I'm trying right now, and it seems to work okay. I get a fair amount of damage. Afterwards, I swap in Gardevoir, and I try to look for the final move there to KO this Pokemon. But let's take a look at Meowscarada's actual moveset that I have. So I have a Fairy-type move first, Play Rough. Then I have U-Turn, as I discussed. I have Flower Trick and Magic Leaf, both as strong Grass-type moves. So I think it was really important to have some Grass representation on this team, because that was something that I wasn't too covered. And also, Play Rough is going to be an effective move against Dragon types as well, so that's going to help Ice Spinner and Gardevoir moving forward. The thing I like about this Wonder Trade Challenge is it feels like every iteration of the team gets better because I get to pick what Pokemon leaves. And I feel like this is really the best team that we have had so far. Overall, I just feel very comfortable piloting this team. Quaquaval has honestly become one of my favorite Pokemon at this point. I love that it dances and as speed boosts it moves faster. It's details like that that help keep me invested in this team. And I love Meowscarada being on this team because I think it's very cool that I ended up having 2 Paldea starters. It's the overall comfort that I had piloting this team that brought me to my best win-loss ratio across 10 games yet. Using this team, I went 7-3. With that being said, guys, I'm scared because I'm not confident anymore that Wonder Trading is going to benefit the team. I think potentially here, losing one of these Pokemon and being forced to put something else on the team after this game could be bad. I'm comfortable with this, and I don't know what's about to come. But let's get into the Wonder Trade, and man, I really hope that our prayers are answered and we can improve upon this team that I feel comfortable using already. And the next Pokemon is Fuecoco. You cannot make this up. That is all 3 Paldea starters. Not gonna lie, when I saw the Pokemon I received this Wonder Trade, I didn't bother training it. I just went to my PC and pulled out my Skelderidge because, well, that's my starter from Paldea. I picked Skelderidge, so I wanted to use mine for this challenge. I thought it was kind of a full circle moment, to be honest with you. Now, looking at the team here, unfortunately, I had to get rid of Gardevoir. It was a great Pokemon, but when you have the opportunity to use all 3 starters, I feel like you kind of just have to take that. So I don't know if this is an improvement, but it's definitely a lot of fun. I put in Meowscarada against this Palkia, hoping to get off a play rough, and I guess I did. But before we get too far into it, let's talk about Skelderidge's moveset. So the Skelderidge here knows Yawn, as a potential entry to be able to put the opponent to sleep. We got Torch Song because that move is absolutely fire if you get the reference there. As it raises your special attack every time you use it. It's perfect. Shadow Ball gives us a little bit of ghost coverage because, well, now that is something that we are kind of missing given that I got rid of all the ghost types. And then we have Overheat, which is kind of just a Hail Mary. Hopefully we kill him because it's a super powerful move, similar to Sheer Cold on Lapras earlier in the video, if you remember that. Using these 3 Paldea starters, I realize now that I was scared to be scared. I thought this team couldn't get better through Wonder Trade, but it did. And whether it makes sense or not that I used the Paldea starters and went 8-2 in 10 games, I don't know. But I went 8-2, and I will absolutely take that because that cuts at the deficit for the 100-game challenge of the video. So I hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay of these 3 Pokemon. Unfortunately, I was having fun, but it's time for another Wonder Trade. So I'm crossing my fingers here, hoping for something that will improve this team as I send away my 17th Lechonk, it feels like. And in return, I get a Duraludon. Now, this thing is potentially going to make the team a little bit more interesting, but I don't really care too much for it. Unfortunately, the Pokemon I decided to give up for this wasn't one that I wanted to give up, and it was Meowscarada. Now, I really like that Pokemon, and it was very beneficial to the team, but overall, I felt like it was the lowest contributor in the series of last 10 games. I think Skelderidge and Quaquaval really earned their stripes. The moves I went into this with Duraludon knowing here are Dragon Claw, Flash Cannon, Metal Burst, and Hyper Beam. So we got 2 metal moves for the very first time. I haven't had metal on this team, so it's definitely new, but I don't necessarily know if it's good. I got some Real Dragon Claw, which is also different. I haven't really had a Dragon type on this team yet either. So those were welcome additions, but overall, my time with Duraludon on this team, to be honest with you, it was uninspiring. I didn't win that many games. I didn't have that many close games. Out of 10 games with this team, believe it or not, I only lost 4 of them. But it just wasn't fun. Duraludon was not what I wanted. I was having so much more fun with using just the Paldea starters. But unfortunately, that is what happens when you do a Wonder Trade challenge like this. Sometimes you gotta use Pokemon you don't want to use. And Duraludon was definitely one of those Pokemon. He's okay, but very uninspiring. So here we go with a little Duraludon in the actual game. As you can see, he was my last Pokemon out, and he didn't really have any effective moves against it. So I just used Dragon Claw and kind of hoped for the best. It did half of the remaining health, but a Flamethrower really hurt Duraludon, and it's pretty unfortunate. He's just kind of dead. And that was basically the end of the Duraludon era. And I got to go into another Wonder Trade finally. Our second last Wonder Trade is Lucario. This is a Pokemon I not only want to use, but I also just like the Pokemon. I remember back in Gen 4 playing with Lucario, and it was a great time. So I'm looking forward to doing so again right here in this game. So when you look at the moveset for the Lucario we received, it once again looks like it was used in competitive. It knows Meteor Mash is a steel move, Dragon Pulse is a dragon, extreme speed, and close combat. That's incredible coverage. We got a fighting, a normal, a dragon, and a steel move. Meteor Mash is incredibly powerful, as well as extreme speed. Using Lucario in these games, I multiple times used a Meteor Mash to lower their health, and then use an extreme speed to go first and get the knockout. Actually get Lucario on this team, I got rid of the Duraludin because, to be honest, man, that thing just was not great. And Lucario is entirely different. Lucario has immaculate vibes. Immaculate vibes. And it was just the Energizer I needed to push me across the finish line of this 100 games. At this point, I've been playing for multiple days when I get home from work. And to be honest with you, I'm getting pretty tired. In this set of 10 games, I went 6-4, which, to be honest with you, is good because I started closing the gap a little bit more. The gap at this point isn't crazy. I'm within striking distance of making this 100-game challenge positive win rate, which is incredible. But unfortunately, I made a decision, and that's after this next Wonder Trade. I'm going to get rid of one of the Pokemon that have been here from the beginning. And that's Quaquaval. Now, that Pokemon I got after 5 games, and it's been with me. But this is going to be the end. It's going to be Skelderidge, Lucario, and the mystery Pokemon going into our final games. So let's take a look at the Wonder Trade and see who will be replacing him. So our final Wonder Trade of the video, we are going to get Dondozo. Which, man, am I excited. Dondozo is traditionally a very good Pokemon for competitive. It's a big, bulky whale. Why wouldn't you want a big, bulky whale? And this is going to be the Pokemon that's going to be replacing our very much loved Quaquaval. And here we go. As you see, we're starting with Lucario. We got Garchomp on the other side. Dragon Pulse. Bam. Bringing that thing down pretty low in the health here. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I go for an extreme speed right here. Or that's what I'm hoping that I did. Oh, never mind. I got another Dragon Pulse in me. Bam. There goes Garchomp. Lucario's still going fast. Still going strong. So the moves that Dondozo knows here are Body Slam, Aqua Tail, Rain Dance, and Order Up, which is a pretty interesting combination. 2 water moves, a normal, and a dragon. The dragon, to me, is very specifically interesting. Now, for the Body Slam, I was using the item that allowed my damage at physical contact to be risen, so I didn't really get an opportunity to do that in this game, but I wanted my Body Slam to really be a really powerful attack. But as you see, I just keep using Order Up on Walking Wake. But unfortunately, the Dragon Pulses get the best of Dondozo and it dies. And I'm just doomed here with only Skelderidge in a water battle, which is very unfortunate. Guys, this is a game that I don't want to say it, but I lost. It was the final game concluding the last group of 10, and I went 4-6. Which is very unfortunate because I had high hopes for this team. But now, let's take a look at the entire experience for a bit, and we'll assess our entire record after 100 games and see what I think the best team that we had was within this challenge. Alright guys, so to conclude this video, I just played 100 games using a bunch of different teams because I had to Wonder Trade one Pokemon after every single game that I played, and I think the best team that I had has to be the one that had the best record, right? Because that completely makes sense. I think Quaquaval, Meowscarada, and Skelderidge was the best team I had. Using those Pokemon, I went 8-0. Now, if we were to reveal the record for the complete 100 games, to be honest with you, it sounds fake. I won 50 games and lost 50 games. And I'm going to say, by win-loss, that's the most successful Pokemon video I've ever had. So maybe Wonder Trading is better than ChatGPT. It's probably better than just straight up using the Kanto starters as well at this point. So if you guys enjoyed this video, if you have any feedback, please let me know in the comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe if you liked it. I would love it. If you subscribed, I'd be so happy. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hey, and check out some of my other videos if you haven't.